Okay, today we are going to be doing lesson number 2 in Foundations. Lesson 2, okay. Our first spot on our notes here is talking about our absolute value. Absolute value is simply the distance that a number is away from the number line. So if I look at a number line, I've got the number 1 right here. And I would ask myself, how far is number 1 away from the number line? Well, it's just one space away, so it's a positive 1. But if I also looked at this negative 1 and asked myself, how far away from 0 is this number on the number line? The answer to that is still 1 unit away. So absolute value is always going to be a positive result because it's distance. And you can't really walk a negative distance. You can't go for a negative mile long run. So positive, okay, is what you want to keep in mind. So let's look at our examples. The absolute value of negative 13, if I did my number line, I would count 13 spaces to get myself back to 0. And then some people get confused when I suddenly have a positive number inside the absolute value. Again, it is still a distance of positive 21 units away from 0 on the number line. Okay? And then they're going to throw us some different operations. We need to evaluate multiple absolute values and then put them together after we evaluate them. So in example 3, I've got the absolute value of negative 3. Will be 3. Whoops. Let me put this back. Okay, will be negative 3. Let's clean that up. Okay, and then the absolute value of negative 5 will be positive 5. And then I'm going to bring down this plus sign that was on the outside of the parentheses. That did not get affected. I'm sorry, not parentheses, but the absolute value bars. That positive sign did not get affected. So I now have 3 plus 5. And so my final answer here will be 8. I want you to go ahead, pause this video, and try examples 4 and 5 before we move on. All right, I've given you just a minute to go ahead and do examples 4 and 5, and I want you to take a look at mine. I've shown my work, and I've got my final answers there. If you are still having any questions about this, I want you to go ahead and raise your hand and ask me. If you're doing great, that's good. Keep on going along with these notes. But I do want to point out that I added an extra note at the bottom. Some of us are struggling with adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. So here's my notes. When we are adding two positive numbers, you add the numbers and the result will be positive. When you're adding two negative numbers, you add the numbers and just keep the negative sign, okay? So that's adding. Subtracting. When you're subtracting two integers that have different signs, so let me make a note of that, different signs. Different signs. We will be subtracting the numbers and just keeping the sign of the bigger number, okay? So let's go ahead and look at our example number 6 up here. I have 21 minus 7, and it's all inside, it's all inside the absolute value signs. So before I can evaluate that absolute value, I need to simplify the numbers first. So I'm going to go ahead and do 21 minus 7, and that gives me 3. And it's still inside the absolute value. I haven't done that part yet. Now that I have a single number inside that absolute value, I can reduce it, and my final answer is just a positive 3. I want you to jump ahead and try to do number 9 right down below this number 6 on your own, and I'm going to give you just a second to do that. All right, hopefully you've had enough time to go ahead and do number 9. I showed my work. I did 15 minus 23. Now we're subtracting these numbers. Obviously their signs are different. I have a positive 15 and a negative 23. So what I ultimately did was 23 minus 15 is 8, and then the 23 is bigger, so since it has a negative in front, I kept the negative with the 8. And of course, it's still all inside the absolute value, so I need to evaluate that next. My final answer is a positive 8. All right, I'd like for you to go ahead and finish up all the rest of these. Pause the video and come back in just a few minutes when you've had a chance to try them all. Welcome back. Now that you've had enough time to finish up those 5 problems, I want you to go ahead and check your answers with mine. Again, I showed my work. The green minus signs, those are what I brought down from the original problem that was outside of these absolute value bars. All right. If you have any questions after these problems, before moving on to the next part of the video, I want you to raise your hand and ask me, and I'll come help you. For those of you that are ready to move on, let's go take a look at our order of operations notes down below on your paper. Okay, order of operations is something that the majority of you probably know really, really well still from middle school. It is just a way of simplifying an expression where we use a certain order. So, PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. However it is that you learned it, both are acceptable ways of remembering it. P stands for parentheses, and everyone knows parentheses look like this. But I also want to introduce you to a few other types of grouping symbols, okay? One type of grouping symbol that we just learned about and practiced working with was absolute value. That is a grouping symbol. Another kind of grouping symbol is called a brace. I'm sorry, that's a bracket. That's a bracket. Here's what a brace looks like. It's kind of a little squiggly on both sides, okay? That's my brace. The squigglies are kind of hard to do, but we'll have plenty of practice working on them this semester. Okay. E stands for exponents. Again, that would just be like a little number up there above a number. Okay. Multiplication and division. That is very important that you pay attention to the left to right when doing multiplication and division. Addition and subtraction is the same way. It is left to right. Okay. So let's go ahead and do our example 13 together. I am looking for parentheses. Now, some people get tricked up by this because I do see that 2 inside the parenthesis, but there's nothing for me to actually do inside that parenthesis. I just have a single number, so there's nothing to simplify there. So that does not count as a parenthesis. Exponents, I have no exponents. Multiplication and division, I do have. And this counts as multiplication, okay? I also have division here. So typically you do want to do them left to right. I'm going to go ahead and do my 3 times 2 just to make this, well, no, let's see. What is 54 divided by 3? 54 divided by 3. We don't have our calculators yet, okay? So 5 divides by 3 evenly 1 time with 2 left over. 24 divides by 3 8 times. So I end up with 18 times 2. 18 times 2 is 36. And then I'm going to bring down this 7. Normally I try to be a little neater about it. Okay, so 7 plus 36 gets me to my final answer, which is 43. Very good, okay? Let's go ahead and move on to number 14. So I'm going to start out looking for parentheses, and I don't see any. Next, I'm going to look for some exponents, and I see one right there. 2 to the 5th power is the same as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So that is 4 and 4, which is 16 times 2, which is 32. So that's some quick scratch work that you can do. So negative 32, I'm going to bring down my 17, my divide by 4, and my plus 6. And I'm actually going to erase my scratch work over here so it doesn't interfere. Okay. All right, next I'm looking for multiplication or division, and I'm going to do that from left to right. So I have right here a negative 32 divided by 4, and that's going to give me a negative 8. And then I'm going to bring down my 17 and my plus 6. Finally, I'm going to do all addition and subtraction, and I'm going to work that from left to right. So 17 minus 8 is going to give me 9. 9 plus 6 is going to equal 15. Okay? On your paper, what I'd like for you to do now is give number 15 and 16 a try, and then ask Miss Brown to come check your work. And go ahead and pause this video while you do that. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, I've gone ahead and given you the answers for 15 and 16. If you got them correct, that's fantastic. I want you to move on. If you did not get them correct, I want you to go back and reevaluate your work and try it again. If you're still not able to get it after you try it again, I want you to call me over and I'll help you. But for those of you who are ready to move on, let's go ahead and start talking about algebraic expressions. Okay, an algebraic expression is just a mathematical phrase that includes numbers and variables, but you will notice that there is no equal sign. An algebraic expression is not the same as an algebraic equation. So, no equal sign, and that's how you know that you're looking at an expression. All right? Our substitution property states that if A equals B, then A may be replaced with B in any part of the expression. How do we replace it? To evaluate expressions, we're going to be replacing one letter with another number using substitution. Okay? Each time that you substitute a variable with a number, I want you to put parentheses around the number. This becomes extremely important when we have negatives. And then once you've done your substitution, we're ready to follow our order of operations to come to a final answer. If you need more time to copy these notes, I want you to pause the video. If you were able to keep up and you're ready to move on, go ahead and continue watching. We're now going to do 2 examples of evaluating expressions. And I like to color code quite a bit when I do evaluating. So for A, I'm going to use the color red. And instead of the letter A over here, I'm going to put a parenthesis with a 2 inside. For B, I'm going to use blue. So where I see that B, I'm going to put parenthesis 4. Now that squared is going to stay outside the parenthesis. Plus, and for C, I'm going to use green, so plus 7. And I'm going to keep that in parentheses as well. So now I have an algebraic expression that is all numbers, and I'm able to go ahead and simplify it to get to a single answer solution. Okay, so using our order of operations, parentheses, of course everything has parentheses because we need to do that when we substitute. Next, so I looked for parentheses. Let's look for exponents, which I do see. 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. Okay, I'm going to bring down the rest of this to keep it nice and tidy. There we go. So I have checked for exponents. Check. Next, I'm doing multiplication or division from left to right. So I do see some multiplication right there. 16 times 2 gives me 32. Bring down this plus 7. Okay. And now my addition or subtraction step. 32 plus 7 gives me 39, and I'm finished. I want you to go ahead and pause the video and give number 2 a try before I go through it with you. All right, so for example number 2, I've already gone ahead and identified that I'm going to use red for substitution for the variable x. I did my substitution, I kept my parentheses, and now I'm ready to evaluate. So let's make our list off to the side. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. This is just a good way to keep organized and to make sure that you don't forget anything along the way. So I'm checking for parentheses, nothing inside a parenthesis to evaluate. Exponents, I do see an exponent. -2 squared, and here's where some people might have missed this. -2 squared is really -2 times -2. Which would give you a +4. Okay, and then I'm going to bring down everything else. All right, so I've done my exponents. Now I'm looking for multiplication or division from left to right. So I've got 3 times 4 right here is 12. And also a -4 times a -2 here, which will give me a +8. So I've done multiplication all the way through. Now addition, subtraction, obviously 12 plus 8 is 20. And I've got it. What you're going to do right now in your notes is if you look down below, there is a section called You Try. And there are 4 examples or practice problems there that you need to go ahead and try. I will place the answers here in a moment, but I do want you to pause this video and try them first. And just like before, if you got them correct, that's great. If you missed them, I want you to erase your work and to try it again. And after a try, if you're still not able to get to the answers, that is when you will call Ms. Brown and ask for help. Once you have successfully completed these 4 practice problems, at that point you may go ahead and log into Quizzes and begin your homework assignment. All right, I will be right back in just a minute to give you your answers. All right, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to go ahead and try those 4 practice problems. For any of you who are still really struggling and Miss Brown is just too busy helping someone else, I will get to you when I can, but in the meantime, go ahead and check out my solutions. You can pause the video here. Hopefully this helps. Once you feel comfortable enough to go ahead and start on your homework, go ahead and do that, okay? All right, thanks for watching.